Hey, Washington Street. I'm Will Clark. Done a couple of these Devos before, but here I am again. I'm actually right now I'm in Huntsville at Mayfair Church of Christ. I've mentioned that I was an intern here before, but we are actually doing church camp right now. This is a little backstage look. It's fun. We're all finished up for the night. So our church camp is local this summer due to all the COVID stuff, but we're still having a great time in our masks being 6 feet apart. See, our theme for the summer and for camp this year is reunion. This idea came from the fact that all 4 of the interns from last summer are back again this summer. But when we planned this summer, we weren't expecting COVID to hit. And so when it did, it kind of gave reunion a new meaning. Now that this is kind of the first time that our whole youth group is able to gather together again. And then with reunion as our theme for the summer for camp, we're spending this week talking about Luke 15 verses 11 through 32. For those of you who don't know, that's the parable of the prodigal son. And I can let you read it on your own, but just to kind of paraphrase a little bit, basically you've got a father with 2 sons. And his younger son comes to him one day and he says, "Dad, I want my share of the inheritance." Which, if you know anything about Jewish tradition, his share of the inheritance would have been 0 because he was the younger son. He technically didn't get anything. But the father obliges. He says, okay, and he gives him his inheritance. And the son takes that money and runs off to a foreign land, and it says he squanders all of his wealth. And it says once he's out of money, a severe famine hits the land. And so he's got to find a job somewhere. And he does, but the only thing he can find is basically like a pig worker. He's not even managing it, he's just working there with the pigs. And it says that one day he was sitting there just desiring to eat the pods that the pigs were eating. See, to the Jewish audience that Jesus would have been speaking to, a few things would have alarmed them already in this story. One of them being the younger son asking for his inheritance from his father. See, because to them that would have been like saying, "Dad, I'm done with you. I wish you were dead. Give me your money. I'm done with your way of life. I'm done with your God. I'm done with your religion. I'm done with your rules. Give me my money and I'm getting out of here. I don't want to be a part of this anymore." So that's the first thing that would have kind of surprised them. But the second thing that would have surprised them, or would have been kind of shocking to them, was the fact that he was working with pigs. See, because to the Jews, pigs are unclean animals. And so the fact that he was working with the pigs shows that he was defiled, physically defiled. But then we also know that it says he desired to eat what the pigs were eating. And so that would have kind of given them a sense that on the inside he was unclean also. And as a Christian audience, what we can gather is this guy was just stuck in his sin. And so it says he came to his senses. He looked around him and saw what was going on, and he came to his senses. And he gets this kind of speech ready for his dad. He's going to go home. And he says, "Father, I've sinned against heaven and against you. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. But will you please make me like one of your servants?" And so he's rehearsing this, he's getting it ready, and he goes home. And it says when he was still a long way off, his father saw him and ran to him and met him. And so what I see here is a father that is waiting every day for his son to come home. And finally his father sees him off in the distance. And he runs to him. And the son starts and he says, Father, I've sinned against heaven and against you. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son." And his dad stops him. And with arms open wide, he wraps him in a big hug. He doesn't even get to say, make me like one of your servants. No, the father cuts him off. He stops listening. He starts talking to his other servants. He says, hey, you know that fattened calf? Throw it on the fire. That's what we're having tonight. And he gives him his ring. He gives him his ring that says he's a part of the family. The ring that's reserved for the head of the household. He puts shoes on his feet. He gets a fine robe and puts it on him. And at this point, they're going to a party. See, but the older son is out working in the fields, doing the work that his dad had for him. And he hears what's going on, and so he kind of goes closer and he asks one of the servants, hey, what's going on over there? And they say, well, your son is not your son. Your brother is home. He was lost, but he's found. We thought he was dead, but he's alive. And so your dad's throwing him a party. So the older son seeks out his father. And I can imagine this conversation going a little like this. Are you kidding me? Really? I've been in your house my whole life. I've always followed your rules. I've always practiced your religion. I've always been faithful. I've always done exactly what you told me to do. And his father stops him. And he says, look, everything that I have is yours. But you've always been with me. But your brother was dead. We thought he was gone forever. But he's now alive. Your brother was lost, but now he's found. And so his dad just kind of leaves it open-ended with an invitation to the party. See, when Jesus told this story, he was most likely trying to get his audience to identify as the older brother. The brother who felt kind of cheated. But I think we read this story a lot and we identify as the younger brother. Right? We go off and we squander our wealth. Whatever we do, but we end up stuck in our sin. And like the younger brother, we're in the fields with the pigs, wanting to eat what they eat, and we come to our senses, and we say, God, I've sinned against heaven and against you. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. And we just hope that we could be a servant that is taken care of, because that's all we want. And when we finally build up the courage to actually go home, to turn back to God, before we can even say that we want to be like a servant, he's already put us in a bear hug. I spoke today to the high school boys. I mean, this is what we talked about, and I ended up talking for about 30 minutes, which is not my goal here. But the thing I closed with them with is that there's nothing you can do. There's nothing that you have done, are doing, or will do that can separate you from the love of Christ. That's the Will Clark paraphrase from Romans. Guys, look anywhere in your Bible. Who would write a 66-book love letter called the Bible from God to us? And in that book, it says that no matter what you do, you can't separate yourself from the love of Christ. Guys, we're stuck in our sin and we're thinking there's no way I could be loved. And that's just not true. Because the second you start to come home, before you can even get to the driveway, God's welcoming you with open arms.